Good evening and welcome to the second round of the Prospect Tier in One Hub Racing. I'm Tom Cairns in the Country Box. Alongside me is Owen Wyatt. How are you tonight?
Hello Tom, hello viewers. Welcome on everybody. Hope you're all looking forward to round 2. And hope you all enjoyed the F1 earlier. Looking forward to some more good racing tonight.
Yeah, well, just for those who haven't watched Formula 1, we'll not mention anything in case any of those will be watching it on catch-up. But going on to tonight's event in Bahrain, a circuit which I think a lot of the drivers do like racing at. And I think, given the numbers we've got in so far, with 5 minutes to go before qualifying does begin, it looks like we're going to get some good numbers for this evening. And just to mention, whilst we are waiting, of our sponsors, so Next Level Racing, who sponsored the league by providing an NLR direct drive stand to the Driver of the Season award, and 3M Sim Racing, who sponsored the league by providing a pair of their sim racing gloves to the driver with the most combined total of pole positions and fastest laps. The partners, Vespertine, who support the championship prizes, and ERT, who partnered the ERT Going Gets Tough award. So it looks as though we've got 16 drivers involved so far. Hopefully a few more will be joining. And last week I wasn't around, sadly, as I was unwell. But Owen, you most certainly were. Could you care to give a little summary as to what happened in last week's events?
Well, we were in Melbourne, Australia last week, of course, for the season opener. And we'd said it before we came there, that there was a good chance that Ferrari would be competitive. And boy, were they. They were 1-2 in the race. Jason ahead of Fozzie Bear. Doyle completed the podium as well. So we had a debut winner and a debut on the podium as well. So it was a very successful race for them. And certainly set up a decent championship. Ferrari once again close to each other, so I wonder if there'll be a little bit of a rivalry this season. But it was an okay race. We had a few lobby issues which sort of made it a bit less exciting. But for the most part, I think we're in for a good season based on that first race. And in terms of the championship, I've already been saying in the previous interviews that we have the race winner of last week turning up here not feeling confident about Bahrain, so might not be as competitive. And if this happens throughout the season where we're going back and forth in terms of pace, it could end up being a very competitive championship. Consistency is such an important thing in all league racing, and well, Doyle, man who finished third, one of his big strengths right now is that consistency. So I wonder if that'll play into the championship as well.
Yeah, and the driver of the day was of course given to Jason following. I don't think he made the best of starts in Melbourne from pole position, but he was able to recover well and take a convincing victory. But his teammate Fozzie Bear, from 9th on the grid, came through to complete that Ferrari 1-2. So it's pretty much a perfect start to the season for the Ferrari team in the Prospect Tier. And like you were saying, Jason feels that he doesn't feel as confident going into Bahrain as he was so in Australia. So it'd be interesting to see if any of the other drivers can maybe do better than they did so in Australia, because I feel with this Bahrain International Circuit, it's a good testing ground for the drivers, and I think they'll use that experience to good effect here tonight.
Yeah, they should do. I hope, there's always the worry, and I'm worried about it myself for my race later on, that maybe you always practice the most for the first race. It's about how much you practice for the ones after that. That's where we might see fluctuations in performance. But I hope if they were all around Australia, they'll be alright here. I just wanted to point out as well, something I forgot to mention about last week. Obviously, you mentioned Jason's bad start, and it was 2 cars had jumped in front of him before turn 1. And it's lucky the damage was off, because they actually both, 2 cars that got ahead, ended up facing backwards in turn 1. I think it was Sniffy and Giot, if I remember correctly, and it actually came together there at turn 1. So those two looking for a bit of redemption this week, actually. I wonder what their pace is going to be, because very much interested in seeing how they'll get on.
Mm-hmm. And of course, there was the damage mod was forgotten to be put on as well, so that perhaps explains why we had 13 finishers from 15 that started. But at least they all most of them got to the end of the race and got some mileage under their belts before they do get underway here in Bahrain for qualifying. And in regards to the championship, considering that one round has already been done, Jason has 21 points to his name. Now the top 10 do score, the top 12 score points in One Hub Racing. 20 points for the race winner, 17 for second, 14 for third. Right all the way down to the 12th place finisher gets 1 point. And the the thing is with the one hub racing is that a driver within the top 10 gets the fastest lap, and someone outside the top 10, providing they finish, they also get a point for the fastest lap. So even though you are having a bad race and you feel like, no, I really want to quit, there's still something on offer that you can get, and that's the whole point about one hub racing, is providing a good opportunity to salvage at least something.
Yeah, this is it. You've always got to stick in right until the end, and especially with the damage ball alone, you could see a bit more attrition. So that again is going to really reward the consistency. I think having a bit more points out there should obviously keep more drivers in the championship as well. So I am a fan of that point system, and of course as well that fastest lap point for inside and outside the top 10. I think that's brilliant. I think more leagues should do that because there's another reason just to keep everyone in it. Along with the two-stop strategy, remember, we all have to do two-stop strategies. Safety cars being on tonight and damage, that could affect it. And the drivers, I think they were asked about safety cars earlier on. I'll talk about that later if we do get one, but they were certainly asked for their thoughts because their only reference in this tier, of course, is the pre-season race where we got loads of them. So we'll see how they do all that tonight.
Mm-hmm. And I think with Bahrain, I expect it to be an interesting race. There's plenty of areas to overtake, particularly turn 1, turn 4, and of course turn 11. So there's plenty of time to get it right, and there's plenty of time to get it wrong. So I'm just looking at some other aspects. I was looking at the penalty points because there were a few drivers that got penalty points from the round at Melbourne. Now the driver the most coming away from that is Josh Wilkins, who's got 1.5 penalty points. Then it's Stephen with 1, Smithy and W415 who've got half a point each. Now for your information, the milestones is that if you get 4 penalty points, it's a quali ban, 6 for a race ban, and a disqualification for the season is 8.
Yes, hopefully those penalty points. That will keep drivers from doing anything silly in the races, so hopefully we won't see a repeat of turn 1 now at Australia, because that's where you'd get those types of penalty points.
So 8
waiting for the last couple of cars to come on. 18 people in there. I'm trying to see actually who's missing. We are missing a couple, but hopefully we'll be able to get underway. We've got more than last week, which is always nice to see. We've got the 2 Hasses who are missing. We do as well have a new driver in this week, of course, as they are running out, so we aren't going to run with any Hasses today. But in the AlphaTauri seat, we have now got F1 Baza. So he is a new driver in for this season in this tier, having joined late. And he was actually asked a press conference question as well, obviously asking how he thought he'd do this season, coming in a little bit late. And he's feeling competitive because he thinks top 5 is doable and hopefully a couple of podiums. And this is a track, as he says, where he has won races in previous leagues. He could have a chance coming into here with a bind. So keep your eye on the new driver in this week in Baza, because I reckon he'll be quite quick.
Yeah, I mean that's good to hear as well. I mean that's a new driver to me as well. And when you see new drivers coming into the league who have a good solid chance of actually competing towards the top of the tier, then that's fantastic. We're on to the loading screen now as we get ready for this 18-minute qualifying session here in Bahrain. Who do you think will come out in top in this one, Owen? Who's your money on? Even with Jason feeling he may not be as competitive, I've got a good feeling that he'll still be up there towards fighting at the front.
Well, I think it might be a tad bit of maybe sort of sandbagging. I reckon he'll still find himself up there because he was just so quick last week. I'd be surprised if that all disappears. Last week, drivers were asked what their sort of best favourite tracks were. And a couple of people, Jamie Met and I believe Doyle as well, they did actually say Bahrain, so there's a chance they might have some pace around there. So we've got to keep their eye on those ones as well. But I do expect as well both Ferraris will be up there, and maybe like I say Doyle. Wes was quick as well last week. You know, he was really decent, and so there's a few up there. I don't want to put one name on it because I'll get it wrong, because there's a lot of very competitive drivers out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, in qualifying last week in Melbourne, Jason did qualify in pole. Smithy was second on the grid, but Smithy was only 1,000th of a second quicker than Josh Wilkins, who was third. So that sounds like a close fight there. So I don't know how close it'll be in Bahrain. We'll just have to find out as the session progresses. So the drivers will have chosen their allocations for the session, and we begin the 18 minutes starting from now. So we're just waiting for the cars to, for the drivers to complete their setups, and then we'll start to see some track action here in Bahrain. That's played host to the Formula 1 World Championship Grand Prix since 2004. From 2004 to 20, we've had quite a number of changes actually to the circuit layout. Do you remember for 2005 they changed the turn 4 area to more of a curved right-hander rather than a very sharp right-hander? Because I remember it back in the days of F104 where it's a very sharp right-hander. We can see Ferrari coming out of the pits, which is Jason.
Yeah, so we've seen turn 4 change quite a lot actually, haven't we? Because let's see, it's been changed for the endurance layout. It's also been changed for the short version, and probably was changed coming on the track. But we are running the traditional layout tonight, and obviously Jason on track first. There were questions asked as well about how drivers follow us to prepare, because of course as Basil leaves the session, hopefully he can come back soon, but as you would expect, it's probably not going to rain here tonight, and drivers were being asked, would that make strategy easier, would it make setups easier? Most drivers said yes, but Jason, this man here, he actually said no. He said this actually doesn't make it easier because everyone now gets to focus on the dry and they all can prepare better. So you would expect, as we lose Demon there early on, you'd expect a dry session would mean, easier preparation, but there's one driver there who thinks not. So I wonder if that's just more of him being worried about his pace around here, or maybe it is just more creative sandbagging. We'll find out soon enough as he gets ready to start his lap.
So we're just looking at Doyle at the moment, and he was asked during the week in terms of what his chances are for tonight, and he's saying he hasn't got to do too much practice, but Bahrain is one of his favourite tracks, and he's confident that he can get a decent result out of it.
Yeah, let's hope he can, because it's always good to see the rookies do well. Like I say, if he's happy with his consistency, it's one of the places most people would give a sector or 2 or 3 sectors to say basically what's their best part of the track, and he says his consistency. So like I say, he should do well. I think maybe he's also a player who's just sort of playing himself down, because after one race they maybe all don't quite know what everyone else's pace is, and no one wants to go out there and say I'm gonna win, because it could fly back in your face. But he could be up there. He's on the mediums over his first run, and quite a few of them are. So he's not going to be setting any rapid lap times too early on. I'm going to see actually who is the furthest along on a set of softs. Do we know?
It's Jason. It's Jason who's because he's on. He's the first one to cross over the line to start a flying lap. So we have got him in our picture on the stream. Jason, who won from pole position last week in Australia, is aiming for 2 wins out of 2 here at the Bahrain International Circuit. So coming through sector 2, it's 1 minute 5.2. That's throughout the whole lap, that's not in sector 2 alone. So we hope to see that Jason can keep the lap together and put in a very strong banker of a lap to give himself the best chance. So I would say around about a 1 minute 27 for this effort here, but it could be even faster. And it is even faster than that, so I'll take my word back. 1 minute 26.7 for him. We'll go to Doyle next, because he's the next one behind him. He's on a set of mediums, so he crosses over the line, and it's a 1 minute 28.2. So he's nearly 1.5 seconds off Jason's margin.
Yeah, we'll see obviously on the softer tyres later on how he gets on. And one other thing to point out about this track, I think Doyle actually, he had said it after the race last time, if I recall, because he had said that overtaking was quite difficult in Australia, and I wonder just how much we're going to see that change this week, because one feature on this game I've noticed is a lot better as we see a few more times coming in. Jason's still at the top, but one thing we've seen is that ERS is a lot more usable now. You get a lot more of it, and even in Australia it wasn't the best usage, but here you can fight all race long, and it's some of the best racing you'll ever see on an F1 game. It's absolutely superb. So Doyle saying overtaking was hard last week, I imagine he'll get quite the opposite this week, so maybe pole position isn't as critical this time. So we're always going on about, pole position, that is a great position, but actually, you know what, anywhere in that sort of first 2 rows could be just a really strong position for you in this race.
So we're just watching Jess at the moment. We've seen most of the drivers, or some of the drivers on mediums actually, setting their banker laps. I don't know if they'll decide to go onto a set of the soft compound, but one of the rules to remember in Web Hub racing is that each driver has to complete 2 stops, so 2 pit stops in the race, so no one stoppers in this one in one hub racing, they all have to pit at least twice.
Yeah, that makes strategy a lot easier for all drivers. It means they can just go out there and push as Jess crosses the line, goes up into the top 5 of that. 1 minute 28.0.
So we're watching W415, if that's how you pronounce it. I think it means to say what is 77, so you may have better eyes than I have. Oh, he's gone for a spin though. Oh, he very nearly lost it on the exit turn 11. That could have been very, very costly for him.
Yes, I do believe his name is Wes Cooper. I believe this is who we're looking at. And he loves to mess about with his username. I've still never really figured out how to say his name. We'll go with Wes, and he never complained to me when I've said to him about it. So we'll go with Wes on that one. And he was leading the race last week after turn 1 when all the carnage happened. He fell back a little bit, but still recorded a pretty decent result. I think he was 4th place in the end as he goes up to 5th now, the fastest of the medium runners. About a second off Jason's time. Could bode well for his runs later on, so his pace is not looking too bad so far, actually.
So Fozzie Bear is out on circuit in the Ferrari at the moment, the man who finished 2nd last week. He's aiming for a position better. I don't think we can expect too much in qualifying from him. Comparing his lap time to his teammate in qualifying last week, Fozzie Bear was just under 1.5 seconds off the pace, so if he can get that gap down, I mean, the lap distance of Bahrain is similar to what it is in Albert Park, so Fozzie Bear will be aiming to maybe get to within a second, depending on the compound he decides to set his best lap time on. But since that Jason set his time on the softs, Fozzie Bear could well be starting the race on the soft compound.
Yeah, I expect most of them will, really, unless we see people on mediums doing medium to soft, but I think it should all sort itself out and we'll all be on softs at the end of this as Fozzie gets himself towards the end of the lap. Like I say, I think it's been 2 races in a row, obviously with the preseason as well, where he has shown his pace. And like I say, we'll see now if he does have more pace in Australia, and he does, right up with his teammates. So once again then, the Ferraris locking horns. This really does look like it's going to be the theme for the season, isn't it? Just Ferrari v Ferrari. We love to see this type of thing when teammates are really going for it. Really good teammate pairing, these two. And we'll see that develop just throughout the season. Still got a few more on their first runs. We've got Alex Lilliard out there, and we've got TJW, and we also have Infamous, who's coming to the line now on the mediums in his red boat. Moves up into 12th place. And then Alex Lilliard, he's in the middle sector. He was having a decent race in Australia. I think he made about 8 places by lap 10. He was really flying along. Got a couple of penalties towards the end, but I think his pace this season, he's one of those drivers that you could sort of count on perhaps for the consistency. And we might see examples of that throughout the season as he comes up to the line. Quali position doesn't tend to be his greatest strength in the first 2 races we've seen him in. But today, P4, if he starts from there, he could make so much ground up in the race. He could be right in there for victory as well. And TJW as well, coming around the last corner. We'll see how he does for Aston Martin as he comes to the line. It's looking good. It's P1 good. Very, very good lap from TJW.
It's a very good lap there from TJW. Going back to what he was saying about Alex Lilliard, in terms of his chances of a result in Bahrain, he's confident of achieving a similar result to what he had in Melbourne last week, where he finished 5th. But he doubts that he's doubt that a podium is on the cards for him. So I think that's maybe losing a bit of self-esteem there, because I've got every bit of confidence that he'll be right up there challenging for a top 3. And of course, if we get a safety car, that could very much throw another spanner into the mix. Now, Waze is on what looks like a flying lap to begin with, but he's backed off on this lap, so he's coming back into the pits to get another change of another set of tyres on the car. Infamous improving to 10th place in the Red Bull.
Yes, I think we've also got Josh Wilkins on a lap at the minute for Alfa Romeo. He's on a new set of soft compound tyres. He's a 10th off in his first sector on this lap. It's Smithy, look at that. 2 tenths clear at the top for AlphaTauri. One of those drivers who were right up there last week, right up until that turn 1 incident. As we see Josh come through the middle sector. 1/1000th of a second up on his last try. And his teammates in front of him now, look, Alex Lilliard, that will give a beautiful tow as Josh goes past. That won't really affect his line for the last 2 corners. He should be able to get the braking okay. And as he comes out, Let's see where this time is going to put him. We could see ourselves into the 25s at the end of the session, but for now, Josh has gone P2 on the front row.
That was a good laps on there from Josh Wilkins. I'm not sure if it was ideal for him to move to the right when his teammate was on the race in mind. But either way, he's put himself on the front row for now, at least. So we watch. Just seeing to see who's on a flying lap. I think Stephen was, but he's lost time on this lap due to a mistake somewhere. So he stays in 15th position. So your top 5 so far are Smithy, who's ahead by nearly 0.3 of a second over Josh Wilkins, with TJW, Jason and Fuzzy Bear next behind. And we've got over 7 minutes remaining, so there's plenty of time for these drivers to go out and do another lap.
I do think Jess is on a lap actually at the moment for Alpine, and well, we have hot and cold drivers in this league. Jason, unsurprisingly, the rookie who won last week at fastest lap everything, he's the hot driver. Jess is actually the cold driver coming in. Now, she wasn't here last week because she was up in Scotland. We were all up in Scotland doing our karting, and she wasn't able to race. And I don't quite get why I put her on the cold list. She had an accident in the pre-season race as well. So, Jess, I'm sure will be very quick to turn around and make sure she's not on the cold list after this race. She is already 2/10 up on her lap as Jamie Met goes up into P2. Like I said, he has pace out there and he is showing it at the moment for McLaren. But let's see how Jess finishes her lap off. No traffic in front of her to worry about, so there is just the line. There's an Alfa Romeo into the pit lane now of Josh Wilkins, and that does fully open up the road. She's used her full deployment, but she still gets up to P9. Decent lap ahead of her teammate.
Yeah, indecisive Mackie, I thought he was going to complete his lap, but he must have made a mistake somewhere, and he's gone back into the pit lane.
Right, Jason's starting another lap. He's gone in a bit of a different gap. His teammate in the pits, a few others in the pits, are on in lap, so he has this track mostly to himself. Currently, half a second off the pace. I guess he's probably doing about as well as he expected to do, because he seemingly really didn't think he'd be at the front, but he is nearly a 10th up in his first sector already, so perhaps we could be looking at an improvement as long as Jess moves out of his way.
So Jason,
as he comes up,
there's a bit of a gap still at the moment between Jason and Jess, so I think Jason should be okay. I think Jess will be aware that he's on the back straight, so she'll know not to get in his way. She may go onto the runoff area to just slow down, but she doesn't need to do that just yet. Unless she's coming back into the pits. I think if she's coming back into the pits, that shouldn't hinder Jason.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think she won't get in the way. If anything, she'll give just a distant toe as Jason continues to improve. At the moment, this lap should be looking good for third place, possibly even front row as well. Let's see if he can get a further improvement in this last sector. Right in the final corner, all looks pretty good to me. And as he comes to the line, he does go P3.
So it's an improvement, but not enough to put him on the front row. Jason going third fastest. Jamie Met doing a brilliant job in the McLaren to get within 1.5 tenths of Smithy in the fight for pole position. I think Wes is on a flying lap as well. He's just going through sector 1, and he's over 6/10 up from his best lap they set on the medium. So this is a very good time that he's setting so far. Runs a bit too deep at turn 8. He missed the apex slightly as he got the car turned in. Let's see what he's like through turn 10, which is, for me, the most difficult corner on the circuit. He's gone through that rather smoothly, actually, so Wes is definitely on for a good time here, providing he does get through the remainder of the lap without pushing the car too hard. So through turn 11, riding the outside curve as he enters and exits, takes the wider entry through turn 12, which is a corner which does catch a lot of drivers out, and now through the slower corner of turn 13, and he's got one more braking zone to get through, along with a kink that follows, and then that will be him completing the lap. Takes it steady through the last couple of turns, over the line. Wes is going to put him to provisional pole position, and he completes the first sub 1 minute 26 lap of the session with over 3 minutes remaining.
Yep, and everyone else is starting to come out in the out of that, so Wes did well to set that time in the gap, and he might have time to do another lap if he's got the fuel, but regardless, it's a good gap to have going into those final runs. Infamous is already on a lap, and he looks to be having a decent one so far. He's on the soft compound tyres. He was doing laps on mediums earlier, He has a Ferrari in front of Fozzie Bear, gets a little bit of a toe off of him on the DRS straight. Might gain him 1 or 2 miles an hour, which could be a couple of hundredths of a second, which is always useful around the lap. As he comes up to the middle sector timing beam, we'll see how he's looking. It's 8/10 up on his last attempt, so already this is tracking top 10. It'll probably find even more time in the last couple of corners, so we'll see as he comes up. 2 minutes 34 in the session left. So if he wants another run, he can have one, but I have a feeling this will probably be it for him. As he comes around, there is the line. DRS for the last time on the lap, and he goes P7. Decent lap from him there. And there are a few other drivers in starting their final laps. No TJW's out there. Is there anyone ahead of him? Indecisive is. And I think he probably be one of the first to finish the lap. We've got a few others out there, but I think Indecisive is the first one. No, sorry. Smithy's is the first one. We'll watch Smithy because he's actually second at the minute, of course. And I think he was about 2/10 up in his middle sector. Pole position, provisionally, could be on the cards if he finds one more tenth in his last sector. Look for the time. It is still second fastest, not quite into the 1 minute 25s just yet.
I've just seen that Infamous has retired on the racetrack, which is against the rules. So one of the stewards will be having a word with him about that. But Smithy did lose a bit of time in the last set, though, whilst he was on his line. That Indecisive improves to go up into 9th place. So that's a good lap from him. Doyle is on a lap as well. He's improved through sets of 1 alone. Jess has just started her last attempt. Storm is out on circuit. He's not improved in sector 1 at the moment. Stephen is coming towards sector 2 now. He's only 15th fastest, but he's out on the soft compounds. And he's found 3 seconds already on this upper lane. But the trouble is, he's got a Ferrari right behind him who could well be on a faster lap.
Yeah, he is. But I tell you what, Fozzie will at the very least be getting a fantastic toe. But the dirty air in this last corner, he misses the apex. Stephen's absolutely fine. And he can't just back off. He's also on a flying lap. As he crossed the line, he's gone up to 8th, and Fozzie's gone up to 4th. So there was no letting people through there. They were both on fast laps. So it was all fair enough in there. We are now into the closing seconds of qualifying. And we've got Doyle in the same situation that Fozzie found himself, following a Storm this time, who goes onto another lap, and Doyle moves up into 12th place. Find a bit of improvement, but not enough to go into towards the top 10 just yet. Who else is out there? There's an Alpha Tauri of Smithy, who's slow, but he does have time to start another lap, but he's not got the ERS to do so. So next up will be Jess, who's half a second up on her best time so far. Could she find herself breaking out of that cold list and into top 10? Let's see. Round the final corner, the checkered flag will be coming out right now. You'll see the flag waving, and she does improve, but not enough to move up to 12th place even, so she stays 13th. What about Josh Wilkins? He's in the last corner. Half a second up in the middle sector. This is going to be tight, isn't it, for pole position? Can he beat Wes in the Mercedes? No, not quite. 6/100ths of a second off. So close. Jimmy Met is currently down on the first sector. TJW behind on a slow in lap, and Jason, I think, will be the last man across the line. So we'll see Jimmy first, who's now finding an improvement in the middle sector. I don't think, though, he's going to be able to make much of an improvement because he's got 3 tenths to find, so he might well be staying on that second row in 4th place. But still, it's a decent qualifying for the McLaren driver. Let's just see what time will pop up at the end, just in case he has found time. Yeah, it stays in 4th place, and Jason is on a slow lap as well. And I don't think anyone else is flying around out there, so that does mean that Wes is on pole as it stands, and I believe no one else is going to beat that time because Stroll's put it in the wall. Doyle is crossing the line slowly. Wes is on pole.
Yeah, so just seeing TJW crushing that car into the pit. Well, I'm not sure what's happened there. I hope that wasn't deliberate. But after all that, it's Wes who will start the Bahrain Grand Prix from pole position for Mercedes with Josh Wilkins alongside him on the front row. Then we've got Smithy and Jamie Met on the second row, and it's an old Ferrari row 3.
Yeah, so Josh Wilkins, he had said that he wasn't too sure what his pace is going to be. He thought he might lose time in Sector 3, and sure enough, the couple of hundredths he needed were in that Sector 3, so he was right about where his strong points were, but Sectors 1 and 2, he said he was good there. Sector 3, luckily, as long as you stay up in the DRS zone in the race, Sector 3 shouldn't be as big a problem. So while Wes is on pole, Josh Wilkins is certainly very strong, and we know what Smithy's like All I hope is that Josh and Smithy make it through the first corner facing the right direction, because there's absolutely nothing that's going to stop them smashing each other out of the race now, because the damage is on for this race, remember. They're not going to turn it off again.
So TJW, Infamous, Stephen, an indecisive run out the top 10 with Alex Illiot, Doyle, Jess, Storm and Alls, the rest of those who had set a time, leaving Hawkey, Buzzer and Demon at the back of the grid, as those three did not set a time at all during that qualifying session. I think it's a good opportunity to mention... Sorry, I was just going to say it's a good mention of the premium drivers in One Hub Racing like Wes, Alex Lilliard and TJW, but Jason's not one of those, and he's doing very well at the moment.
Yeah, he's really driving very well indeed. It's good to see him up there, obviously. Of course, not a race premium driver, but still, it's nice to see him up there. We aren't going to have a go at him for it. But, like I say, so many premium drivers. Thank you to all the premium drivers here on the grid, of course. It is obviously very helpful to the league, and it's great to see everyone up there. But, just while we've got a little bit of downtime, I just want to quickly go through the last thing that they were talking about in the press conferences before, and that was really about the safety cars, because like we said last week, they didn't have a chance to see how it all works. Some people had to base it off pre-season. For example, Jim Met, who, if you remember, lost the chance to win the pre-season race due to a pit stop on the safety car, which we felt was a bit unnecessary. And he said straight away that if it's based on pre-season, no, he's not going to be good at safety cars. Others will be surprised to see safety cars. Alex Lilliard will be, really surprised. He said there's so much runoff and no real places to smash the car up. So let's just hope he isn't the one who brings the safety car out, because he seems pretty confident we won't have it happen. But yes, for the most part, drivers are ready for that possibility. But for the first time this season, they will have to worry about it.
So the top 11 are all starting on the softs. The top 10 have to anyway, because they qualified they did their fastest times on the soft compound on the Parc Fermé rules. So Lily are also on the set of softs, and the rest are on the medium compound. But regardless of what happens or what tyres they are starting on, they have to do at least 2 stops. Now they can do medium soft if they want to, or do soft medium, but either way, it's a mandatory 2-stop race.
Yeah, so that'll play into that safety cars point, as I said earlier on, but for the most part, strategy shouldn't be too much of an issue. Tyres last more than long enough around here for a 1-stop, so really you can do whatever you want on this 2-stop, and it could lead to people sort of staying out long in the first stint, i.e. all those medium drivers, and hoping for the right time for a safety car. Could very easily happen for them. And I'm just checking. I still think there's 3 drivers who haven't made it to the grid. I know Alls, Hawkey and Baza are going round, but you can see they've all got big X's above their names. I don't think they set any qualifying times, did they? And they still appear to be not in the lobbies, so I think we will only be having a 15-car race. Luckily they'll stay ghosted though, so that should mean that a Demon will be able to get through them without any issues.
You can see there Jason has a fan watching from the stream, as does Buzzer, the newcomer tonight. He's got a fan watching, and same for Fozzie Bear. So there's plenty of support for the drivers this evening. We do welcome you. Do feel free to get involved in the live chat if you wish. We've got the drivers returning to the grid now, ready to go for the second race of the Prospect here of season 19 in One Hub Racing.
So we know then, Ferrari, they dominated the first round of the season, finishing 1-2, fastest lap, everything you could possibly have wanted has gone their way, but now they find themselves on the 3rd row of the grid, and we have Wes in the Mercedes on pole. We know Josh Wilkins and Smithy are going to have something to say about their incident last week. They want to recover in style, and Jim might still be thinking about that mishap in Brazil during the safety car. He might want to make up for that one too. Plenty of drivers have something to prove here today. As the lights come on, it is 5 red lights. And we are away in Bahrain. Look at the wheel spin for Wes. He's going to lose the lead straight away to Josh Wilkins, who's going flying past. One of the easier moves he'll have this season, and is a big off into turn 1. Lots of runoff. They should be alright as they all fly off. There'll be 10-second penalties to both drivers. That's Jason and Alex Lilliard, but Josh Wilkins has got through okay, and I believe there's no major damage in that start. A few people going wide at 3, but for the most part we're all looking okay, and it's good to see those 2 drivers who were skating off the track are still in the running.
So from second on the grid, Josh Wilkins leads the field with Jason, despite that contact with Ax Lilliart at turn 1, has got himself out, and someone's off into the wall.
Oh,
it's the
Wes.
Mercedes of Wes. The pole sitter's out of the race, and that is surely going to bring out a safety car. It's a VSC for now, but Wes, after a brilliant qualifying, his race is over after only 7 turns.
One of the deadly curbs on this track at turn 7. It is so easy to lose the car there, and that is what our pole sitter has just done. What a shame for him. He had such a great session and was mugged off the line and now out of the race. And that is, it's never what you want to see, is it, at the start of a race, but it has brought out a virtual safety car. Big winners out there, of course, Josh Wilkins, the race leader, because he has a man with a 10-second time penalty sat behind him. That'll be a nice buffer to have, and if he gives Smithy any trouble, then that'll be even better. Doyle, though, the leading driver on the alternate strategy, he's had a really strong start for Williams.
So it's perhaps it's a blessing it's a VSC, because the cars are bunched up together anyway, so no need for a safety car at this moment of time. But we're just watching out to see when the VSC ends, to see if there's going to be any drivers exceeding the delta as the restart gets underway. I think one of the Aston Martins is heading into the pits. Can't tell who is it. Yep. Maybe TJW, actually, who's just come into the pits for the team. We are back on the way. No drivers with drive-throughs at the end of that. So it's just Jason and Alex Lilliard who have got 10-second penalties for the contact.
Yes, I think the order on the screen right now isn't quite accurate, by the way, at the moment, so we'll just wait for that to pop up, because then we'll be able to give you the right order, because it is just sorting itself out. TJW there in the pit lane. He's moved on to the medium compound tyres, so that will probably be medium to soft at the end of the race. So he should be alright. A safety car could put him right into play as well again. And if these guys hold each other up while fighting, for example, that can also help too. So I think we'll just wait for him to go through the Sector 1 timing point, then you will have the right standings on the screen. All you do need to know, though, Jason is already a second behind Josh Wilkins, who, like I say, had so much to prove after the accident last week, as Indecisive and Hawkey are going for it. Both Hawkey and Alls are not here, as well as Basil, so they really did not get back into their cars. When he overtakes those guys, they are AFK, they won't be able to fight any of that.
So Jason, a second behind Wilkins at the moment, but his 10-second penalty is going to drop him back by the end of this race. I think with it being a corner cutting penalty, I don't think he'll be able to serve that in the pits, but we'll find out soon enough. Wilkins posting a new fastest up of the race, but that will come down as the race goes on. And just another reminder, actually, there is a point on offer for both the driver inside the top 10 that gets the fastest. Yeah, sorry, Fossey Bird making a move actually on the McLaren of Jamie Met down the inside into turn 1 to go back up into 4th position.
Yeah, I was sorry to interrupt there. He was making the move past, but yeah, that's him doing that for the second week in a row now, making his way through drivers to get himself to where he wants to be. Like you say, his quality isn't the strongest, but Fozzie Bear's racecraft does seem really strong, and we'll see throughout the race just what his safety car handling is going to be like, and what his general fighting for the win's going to be like when his teammate isn't in the picture anymore. It could be where he properly launches his title campaign. Alex Lilliard is all over the back of Jamie Matt. I saw Jamie really defending to turn A. He's just got to try and keep himself in touch with this leading group, because I do still think he'll have some decent pace out there today. And just trying to see what the order's doing, because all the ghost cars are still being overtaken. That's why you're seeing a lot of green arrows and red arrows popping up on the screen. I'm trying to see, has Doyle picked... Yes, he has. He's got damage. Doyle has got some damage, and that is ruining his strategy at the moment, because Jess has now gone through. She's now the lead driver on the alternate strategy. Hopefully nobody crashes into Doyle as he struggles to get back to the pits. Even the smallest little bit of front wing damage absolutely forces a pit stop, as we see Smithy now trying to get through on Jason down the inside into turn 1. Brakes really too late. He's gone off the track, and Jason will come back through. What about Fozzie Bear? He's not quite close enough, but he might well have the momentum up the hill. I think, though, Smithy will survive it, but he broke way too late into turn 1. Now we've got 2 Alpines fighting away. Very early in the race for teammates to be scrapping, but Storm has got straight past his teammate.
So there was a few battles going on, wasn't there? Whilst Smithy and Jason were fighting amongst each other, I was watching a glimpse of Alex and Jamie, because Alex has just got by Jamie as well to go up into 5th place. But yeah, Smithy just gone in way too deep into the first turn, and it dropped him back behind Jason again. But he is on the tail of the Ferrari, so we expect to see more battles between these two over the course of the season. Someone's gone off in sector 1. It's TJW, who's had a miserable start to the race after pitting in at the end of lap 1. He's spun round, and I think Doyle should get in front of him here as TJW goes off the track.
Yeah, he had just come out with Stephen, who had pitted for the hard compound tyres. A tyre that's looking actually quite decent on this game now. It wasn't as usable last year, but Stephen's using it this year. And I'm suspecting he might have made some contact, because Stephen had just come out ahead. Possibly TJW was trying to jump back ahead of him. But that might be what's led to the Aston Martin going round. Fozzie Bear is challenging Smithy, who's coming into the pits quite early. We're going to maybe try an undercut on Jason, because I don't see any damage on his car at the moment. So we'll just see what Terry puts on. I think it will be another set of softs. So he's going to go aggressive in the second stint, push like mad, and try and possibly undercut and get a few positions out of it, because I think he will come out in some really quite clean air. This could be one to watch.
So Smithy rejoining in 14th place behind his teammate, whose car is controlled by the AI at the moment. So I'm not sure that his race result is going to count if it's going to be the AI controlling that car all the way through. But I wonder if Jason's going to be thinking, should I react to that? And on such a quite a long circuit is the Bahrain International Circuit, 5.4 kilometres, and so much time you can gain over the course of the single lap. The undercut could well be very powerful here for Smithy in his attempt to get through.
Yeah, especially when he's putting a new set of softs on. That is just a nightmare scenario if you're Jason, because that is the fastest possible undercut you can try. So I think Smithy's also going to get DRS on his teammate, who of course isn't here. He's spun early. He's in the wall. Oh, just avoids it. That does ruin, though, his undercut, Smithy. He broke too late and nearly sideswiped the wall at turn 10. And, well, oh, Aston Martin in the wall. No, that is damage. That is Damon, who I think was fighting with Jess for P9. And both Aston Martins, in the space of 2 laps, have been in the wall.
So it's not been a good race.
Too much damage.
Yeah, he's got damage to the left-hand side of his front wing, so that'll be Demon off into the pits very shortly. And Fozzieberg just posted a new fastest lap, and he's now within DRS range to have a go on Jason. I wonder if Jason's going to fight it out this much. If Fozzieberg's alongside, then I don't think Jason's got any need to fend him off. He lets him go through there rather easily. So Fozzieberg up to 2nd place and going after Wilkins.
Yeah, there was no point in Jason fighting his teammate there. I know it's for championship position, but you got to think about the constructors as well. And when one driver's got the 10-second penalty, do let the F1 go without much of a hassle, and it will work in the long term. So that's fair play from the Ferraris there. Not being too Rosberg Hamiltonish just yet, but give it time perhaps as they try and catch Josh Wilkins, who has sort of disappeared. He's 3.7 seconds clear at the front, and we have now seen Smithy make another mistake, and his race has gone from promising to disaster for the 2nd week in a row. It's just not going his way this season so far.
It's been a very disappointing couple of laps for Smithy since he's put on those new sets of soft compound tyres, and that has ruined his chances of potentially going for the race lead, not just battling with Jason as he was doing so earlier on. Wilkins has a lead of 3.6 seconds over Fozzieberg as they come up to complete lap 6. Wilkins not going into the pits in this lap. Fozzieberg isn't either, and neither is Jason. But what about Alex Lilliard? Will he take the opportunity to pit? Yes, he will. So Alex Lilliard will come into the pits, and we'll see what he's gone into the pits too quickly there. So that's a 5-second time penalty for the next time he does pit in. This is the first stop of his race.
So that is 15 seconds worth of penalties that Alex Lilliard has now managed to pick up today already. That is a bit of a race ruiner, isn't it, sadly? He'll take 5 seconds of it at his next pit stop, sure, but still, he's really going to be regretting that turn 1 incident. We didn't really see too much of it, did we? We just saw Jason and Alex just side-swiping across the track. And, yeah, ironically, it made Alex reposition. That 10-second penalty will probably put him right back down to where he was meant to be. But right now, at least he's doing some sort of undercut. Last week, he tried the aggressive undercut, where he went from soft to soft, I think, or he went soft in the middle stint, and then it cost him at the end. So he's learnt from that mistake, and he's going to go onto softs at the end. But yeah, that 10-second penalty will just hang over him, won't it?
So Alex Lilliot rejoining in 12th place behind Buzzer, whose car is still controlled by the AI at the moment. We'll go back to the battle for the race league, because it's still 3.6 seconds, and it's sure it isn't going to be too long before Wilkins does come into the pits. I hope he's aware of the 2-stop rule, and failure to do that will result in a disqualification. But he's coming in now for his first stop of the race. Now, what will Fozzie Bear do? Will he come into the pits? No, he decides to stay out, which will mean Jason has to come into the pits, and he does so.
Yeah, good stuff there. That means there'll be no worries about double stacking at Ferrari. We'll also see Jamie Met into the pits as well, and Infamous for Red Bull. And so I believe this will all be for mediums, but let's see if someone tries the softs. Mediums so far, will we see Infamous do anything different in the Red Bull? Now mediums as well, so they're all going on to mediums so that they can have the softs for the final sprint to the end. Smithy just set the fastest lap of the race, and he's just ahead of Alex Lilliot now actually, he's just overtaken him. He has come out in front of Jason, as has Alex Lilliot actually, but just think where he would be without that spin though. You know, he'd be so much higher up.
You can see he's now just under 7 seconds behind him, so had it not been for that spin for Smithy, he would have been in front of Wilkins, so that mistake would have cost him. But Fozzie Bear has still not been in the pits yet, as Demon posts a new fastest lap in the Aston Martin. And Smithy has got a bit of clear track ahead of him, because Jess, who's the next one up the road, she's 6.5 seconds ahead, so Smithy can use all the clear track he can use to close in on the guys he's battling with, the likes of Wilkins, Fozzie Bear, Jason and co, as Wilkins comes up behind the McLaren of Ols, who's one of those who started the race on the medium compounds. He's in fact the highest. He's the highest of those who started on the mediums.
Yeah, of course, he didn't actually start the race, did he? As he's gone off the track now, he's lagging a bit, you can see. He didn't actually start the race because he wasn't here, and he must have retaken control of his car. I'm not too sure how they would distribute points for this. If you didn't actually start the race, you only joined sort of halfway through. You know, what do you wonder what Stuart think about that? Because he's clearly still struggling with some sort of issues, isn't he? So I wonder if he'll even make it to the end still. But a few more pitters, indecisive onto hards. Anyone else having some fights out there? I know Storm's on the back of Josh Wilkins now. Don't expect anything to happen to that. Josh just going to pull away in the lead now, I'd imagine. Strategy looking quite good for him, actually, isn't it, Storm? He, I know he's a pit stop effectively behind Wilkins now, but if he gets a well-timed safety car, like I said, at this sort of time, this is when you want it to happen.
Yeah, I could possibly agree with that, because you do lose quite a bit of time in the pits, so that'll be like a free pit stop for Storm if the safety car was to be deployed. I've just seen Fozzie Bear come in for a pit stop now as well, so he's effectively in second place at this rate, and he's just behind Ols, so Fozzie Bear will just need to get a move on here. He needs to dispose of these two so he can get onto the tail of Wilkins and put him under some pressure. You can see Ols lagging a little bit there still as the drivers come through turn 11. Jess is in 5th place at the moment as well. Smithy closing in all the time. The gap at the moment is now down to 2.8 seconds. You can clearly see the gap is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking as Fozzie Bear all over the back of the McLaren. This is the problem when you stop behind traffic through these faster turns. Now, is Ols going to put up that much of a fight? Fozzie Bear will get the benefit of the DRS as they come through the last couple of turns, and Fozzie Bear should get onto the back of Ols, but I think the only problem he's got is that Ols is going to have DRS as well.
Yeah, and the fact that car is just moving all over the place, as there's been a 2-car collision. Doyle and TJW, they've gone off, and Ols is now dive bombing Storm, and that's brought Fozzie to practically a dead stop. And he's moving all over the show because of the lag goals, so really, Fozzie Bear, that's a nightmare car to be stuck behind. Luckily, he's getting ahead now. Surely Ols can't fight that one, not with the way his instinct is at the minute. He is struggling so much, but luckily, Fozzie's got through. It has cost him time, but it hasn't cost him a front win, and it could easily have done so there at turn 1.
So Fozzie Bear up into 3rd place on the road. He's behind Storm, who is still yet to stop in this event. And Fozzie Bear will be within DRS range, and the good news for him is that Storm is not within a second of a car ahead, so Fozzie Bear will have the straight line speed advantage for when they do get onto the start-finish straight, like they've gone through now on the back straight. And Jason's gone for a spin. Jason's gone for a spin at turn 10 and he loses even more time. So his chances of a podium finish are diminishing at the moment. So I doubt it's going to be a repeat of his Melbourne victory 7 days ago.
Yeah, I think that penalty had sort of already cemented that, but that spin under the pressure from Alex Lilliard really has confirmed it. Fozzie Bear is trying to get into the DRS zone. He decided he wasn't going to pass into the last corner so that he could get DRS on the Storm, and now he'll pass him with relative ease. The Alpine stays out. Like I say, he must be waiting for a safety car of some description. Of course, he'll want to go longer on mediums anyway because he'll want to do 2 soft stints towards the end, but certainly he would love that safety car graphic to pop on the screen. As Smithy goes down the inside on Jess and gets up into 5th place. He is still on at 3rd. He's actually, since he's on the soft, he is catching Fozzie Bear a little bit. Like I say, about that spin, he would have been so much better off, but still a podium position. Considering the spin and Josh getting a penalty, there might be a result in there for him still.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, even on relatively old softs now for Smithy, he's definitely on course for a podium finish. As Alex gets past Jess now as well, so Alex making his way through the field. Stephen gets a time penalty. And so that will curtail his chances of a points finish. It's top 12 that score points, remember, plus 1 driver from the top 10 with the fastest lap, and 1 driver from outside the top 10 getting the fastest up as well. So a point each in that case.
So Alls is, he's just got back past Smithy. Did he make an illegal overtake or something? Because Smithy had got through and then it seems he slowed down in the turn 12 apex and had to let him back past. Weird one that, because it's cost him loads of time. I think it's cost him about 2 seconds, this Smithy. And he obviously has Alex Lilliard all over the back of him once again, so not entirely sure what happened there. Didn't see any yellow flags that would have caused problems. There is yellow flags now for Stephen. That's cleared now though. Jason's got ahead of Jess, who's pitted. And Smithy now diving Alls, that's off the track. I think that's the second time I've seen that happen today. And Alex...
Ooh, careful.
Oh, well...
Oh, be very careful. I was just going to say, be very careful there. Smithy had an Alfa Romeo alongside him going through turn 2. That could have been a wild accident for him there, but that was all kick-started when he went far too deep. It's not the first time he's done that in this race. If you remember, he did the same move on Jason in the race at the beginning. That didn't pay off, and he nearly went, he nearly took the Alfa Romeo with him as he rejoined. And going back to what you were saying about Stephen, or Alex, or was it Smithy he was trying to overtake? Alls, actually. He got caught out on the curb a little bit at turn 12, which is a destination that sees loads of spins at, so I don't think he could afford to go for a spin in comparison to just simply riding over the curb and just easing off the throttle.
Yeah, so just to put it into context, the gap between Smithy and Fozzie Bear about 2 laps ago was about 4 seconds, if not maybe a little bit less, more like 3 seconds. Now it's nearly 7. That's how much all this is costing this group. At least it's putting Jamie, Matt and Alex on the back of Smithy, because it is still for net 3rd place as it stands. But yeah, messy stuff going on as I believe that's Storm into the pits. And All's now been overtaken by Smithy. Alex will go through as well. Will Smithy get his braking right this time into turn 1? Yes, he does. Alex all over the curb. And that might invite Jamie Met into the party. The 2 McLarens might squeeze the Alfa Romeo into a mistake. And you can see All's again moving all over the show. And Alex doesn't go for the move on him. I do wonder if the stewards will look at Smithy for forcing Alex off the track, because I think you could probably make a good case for him forcing him off at turn 2 on the last lap, because it definitely forced him to cut turn 3. And he would have been ahead of Smithy, and now he's stuck behind Alls as a result of all that stuff on the last lap, and Smithy now can sprint away. Yellows for TJW. Now he has gone off at 3. And he's looking at the Armco bars. Alex has got by Alls, and there's a lot going on there with lag again. And Alex seems to be losing out, because there goes Jason through. This is a nightmare car. Jimmy's gone clear of his teammate now, but nightmare car to be stuck behind right now in Alls. And there's nothing these guys can do about it. They can complain all they want, but they've got to pass him, and it's so difficult. I cannot say this enough. This is the worst situation to be in a race.
So Jason is behind Ols now. He's in 6th position. But he doesn't want to be waiting behind that McLaren for too long here because it's a championship he's fighting for. Now Jason is a newcomer. Yeah, so Ols into the pits. So is Smithy. Smithy will go on to a set of mediums now because he's done 2 stints on the soft compounds. So this is very much to the end of the race.
Yep. So he's now hoping that we don't get a safety car, because a safety car for him now, when he's already made that second stop, it just would mean he would lose that potential 3rd place, because he's now doing what could be a massive undercut. He's got the pace, but he's now in a 3-car, 4-car train. Now he's just joined it, and he's gonna have to get through this quickly, because after this there is a pretty decent, 4.5 second gap in front of this train, which he could use to set some really quick times. So that's what we're going to have to be looking at, because the guys at the front can't pit, because the sauce will not last long enough at this point. So this is where he's got to put in the fastest laps, and you can see Storm all over the back of Stephen, I think this is. Williams sandwiching Alpine with AlphaTauri just looking in from behind. And Storm really had an instant there. He's climbing way too much over the curves. If he does that at, say, 12, we're looking at a pile-up. He's got to be really careful.
Well, he's got the DRS actually. He's got a better exit, more straight line speed, and this should be a slam dunk manoeuvre here for Storm. He's got more grip than the Williams, and he goes through and up into 8th place. But he made contact with him through turn 6, and I thought he was going to go for a spin, but luckily he didn't. He's got through now anyway. So Storm up into 8th place. He doesn't have a time penalty to his name. It's 5 seconds adrift of indecisive, so as it stands, Storm would not move up any positions, but a safety car now would do him a lot of favours, unlike those who have penalties.
So Smithy then has just got past Doyle, which is a good start for him. Obviously, I think Storm will be difficult to catch, and obviously with the lack of penalties, he's playing himself into quite an interesting competitive situation, perhaps for later on in the day. As Stephen goes a bit wide at 1, Smithy maybe already starting to put him under pressure. It's new mediums versus old hards. It really shouldn't be a difficult scrap, but we saw Storm take a while to get through, so perhaps Stephen's quite good at the defence. Gap at the front, by the way, just to further emphasise how much that battle slowed everyone down. Jim Met is 3rd place. He's already 15, 16 seconds off the race lead. That's just how much that all situation cost. So Fozzie Bear, really the only one, unless we get a safety car that can challenge Josh Wilkins for the victory. He has to find 2.5 seconds.
So the biggest jumpers from their starting positions are Alex Lilliot and Storm, 6 places up. So Alex Lilliot moving up from 11th to 5th, Storm from 14th to 8th. They've had good races so far, but can it get even better for them? So Jason, who's coming up behind the McLaren at the moment, he will have DRS, but I'm not sure if he's going to be close enough to have a go. Now, Jason's got more ERS in hand than the McLaren, so he may have half a chance of having a go into turn 1. 14 laps remaining of this Bahrain Grand Prix in the prospect tier of One Hub Racing. Josh Wilkins leads at the moment. He does have a penalty to his name, but even that will not deprive him of the victory.
Yeah, as it stands, he's looking all good, but we've got to keep our eyes on his warnings, because it could become stressful towards the end. Jason, obviously it's a shame again with that 10-second penalty hanging over Hayes and Alex Lilliard's heads. What that would do at the moment, all it would actually do is it would put Infamous into the top 4, and Jason and Alex just fall down 1 position. But J-Met, he'll see that 10-second icon sitting next to Jason, and a 15-second icon, I think, sitting next to Alex Lilliard's name. And that'll give him peace of mind, so he doesn't have to fight this too hard. The one he's really racing is Infamous, and he's nearly 4 seconds off of this pack. So they could be smart about this and just not cost each other too much, because they've got a good gap to Indecisive at the moment, who's on the hards and probably going to be under pressure from Storm in the next couple of laps.
Now, the highest of those who's pitted twice in this race is Smithy, and he's running in 9th place. No penalties to his name, so we've got all those needing to make one more stop, and that includes these two, Jamie and Jason, fighting over the final podium position.
Let's see. Oh, that's off the track. That could be warnings if you do that too much. Will Jason have lost some time there as well, perhaps? I'm not sure. He's got a chance to go for this down at turn 1. Certainly wouldn't want to risk it. He knows better than anyone what happens if you get it wrong towards turn 1 in this race. And so he's not going to take any risks now. And he heads up the hill. There's a second DRS zone, but again, I do not think Jason is close enough to do anything about it. So Jimmy Matt will stay in third place a little bit longer, and Storm has been overtaken by Smithy. So despite being on the quicker tyre, Smithy still dispatched the Storm like he was on a set of hards. So that is good for Smithy and his pace, as Doyle gets alls, and then that's becoming a free car scrap. 2 Williams and a McLaren. And that looks like alls might bring out a safety car, but that's big contact. But luckily, no Darius, that might actually be due to lag. I'm amazed a contact that humongous hasn't caused an accident. Williams
we do have an accident
now.
Sorry, I was just going to say the Williams made contact with each other. Oh, and Doyle goes for a spin as well. It's synchronised spinning here in Bahrain almost. And Doyle has gone for a spin. The corner after his teammate nearly went off. Well, he did go off, but he nearly hit the wall as well, and that really could have been a safety car. I was just going to say, we didn't have a safety car graphic on screen, on the stream anyway, as Josh Wilkins comes in for his final stop. And to be honest, that's perhaps good timing for him, because that could have been him losing the race lead had he caught up to the safety car if it was deployed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think he's done that in anticipation for a safety car that's now never come. Although Jimmy and Jason are side by side, I'm just amazed though. All Stephen and Doyle are all quite lucky still to be in this race, frankly. But they all have got through. And like I say, Josh pitted, I believe, in anticipation for that safety car, putting mediums on to go to the end. I'm sure that was not his strategy. I'm sure of it. He thought he could take advantage of a safety car, I think, and Fozzie's sitting there thinking, why isn't he pitted? I'm pitting on the sauce at the end. Surely I'll be quicker. He's got a penalty, all I have to do is close within 3 seconds now, and surely Fozzie Bear is now the favourite to win this race. Unless, of course, Josh has a really good few laps on these medians, but he's stuck behind his teammate who surely will let him through. The worry for him is if Jason and Jamie Met fight too much. I think Jason's pulled away enough anyway. So the question is, will Fozzie Bear pit this lap to try and cover Josh, or will he stay a couple more laps, put the soft tyres on, and go for the victory that way? I think he's going to do the latter, and I think that was Josh's original plan until he changed it on seeing that yellow flag.
I think Fozzie Bear may as well take a gamble here, because if he did come in now, he'll be quite some way behind Josh Wilkins and others as well. So I think Fozzie Bear may as well take a gamble in case there is a safety car. Amazingly, we've only had one retirement in this race. That was Wes, who crashed out on lap 1 despite starting from pole position. As Alex comes in, now I think this is going to be an opportunity for him to take 5 seconds of his penalty.
Yes, he shall take 5 seconds. There you go. All the pit crew will stand by, and they will now take the tyres off, and there is 5 of the 15 seconds taken up already. And, well, I think Josh had been saying as well in pre-race interviews, he was preparing for safety cars, so he must have been thinking that scenario through his head before the race. See, if I see a yellow flag at that stage, box straight away. It's something you see quite a lot on real F1, and, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it works really well, and it could still work for Josh, but I think it's worked out to be a potentially big risk towards the end, because if he didn't have a penalty, I wouldn't be too worried for him. But it's the fact that the car doesn't actually need to pass him to win this race is what makes that pit stop so risky. And so, yeah, that's how it goes. We'll see how it works, but it certainly gives us an intriguing end to this race.
So Josh Wilkins, who was only 19th overall in the Prospect tier last season with the best results of 10th in Austria, is on course effectively to take a victory here. I think we had a brief yellow flag there, but it's gone away quickly anyway. So Fozzie Bear starts in lap 20. We've got 10 laps remaining here in Bahrain. Fozzie Bear looking good for a very strong result. Jason will be thinking about that 10-second penalty as well. He's got one more pit stop to make. I think he's going to do the same strategy as his teammate, as Wilkins posts a new fastest out on 1 minute 29.1. That'll be another championship point going his way. Last week, Wilkins finished, I'm just looking to see where he finished last week. He was only 11th, but he did get the point for the fastest out, as he was outside the top 10 in that particular bracket of the race, if that makes sense with you. So he's got more of a chance to add potentially 21 points to the 3 he got a week ago.
Oh, Jimmy's off! Jimmy's spun on the curb. He's in the gravel trap. That's one less car for Josh to worry about. And there goes Infamous through as well. Now, Infamous, I'm not too sure where he's looking like he's going to be playing himself in this race, but he could be on, like I say, for at least a top 4 finish, possibly even a podium with that Jamie Met spin, because it effectively leaves the Red Bull driver in a net second place as it stands. And then I think Smithy might end up jumping because he's going to the end, of course. So I think Infamous is sitting there looking at a potential 3rd place, which is really impressive stuff for him. Just trying to see how many positions he's actually made up so far today. He's already made 4 places. It could end up being 6. That's a contender for driver today we're looking at right there, isn't it? If he can keep this up.
Infamous has had a relatively clean race, hasn't he? And you know, I think he didn't have a good performance in Australia, to be quite honest with you. But he's definitely on course for a better result here today. And I think that's the difference between going to a circuit where it's more tricky and a circuit which you have a good chance of actually doing well in, as long as you know the track very well in terms of the characteristics in regards to when to brake into certain corners. And it's a good testing ground for the drivers. So I think Infamous will be very happy to get a potential top 4 finish, maybe a podium, depending on how the others do on their final stints. So
yeah,
Wilkins...
Well, he said he was... Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Wilkins in 3rd place, 1.5 seconds behind Jason.
Yeah, all I was going to say is that Infamous, he had told us before the race he was more confident at this track than he was at Australia, and it's certainly paying off at the minute. Jamie, though, after that spin, I'm sure he'll want to get himself right back up to pace, and he might have to try something different on strategy now, just to try and get some sort of undercut to try and break back into that definitely 3rd place, because I think Smithy's going to easily jump these guys, because he did that second stop so long ago now. And he will be just way clear of them. I'm just wondering... Yeah, all the other guys who've made 2 stops have penalties, so I do think Smithy looks pretty good here to finish 2nd place, which actually, do you know what? Or, well, 2nd or 3rd, definitely looks good. Let's see what Fozzie Bear does. He's into the pits. I'm expecting the red marked softs here. And it'll be him versus Josh for the win, with Smithy probably sitting 3rd. But we'll see how this all pans out.
Now, can he get out in front of Infamous? He'll want to get out in front of him. He cannot afford to be losing any time. Jason and Wilkins have gone past him now. And Infamous is in the pits, actually. So he'll have clear nightlife ahead of him. So I was going to say daylight, but we are racing under the lights here in Bahrain. But Jason in the lead on the road, but he has a 10-second time penalty. He's not in the frame for the victory. He's got to hold Wilkins off as much as he can to help aid his teammates. Wilkins runs wide, and that's the purpose of holding another driver up.
Yes, that is indeed. So let's just quickly need to correct myself on all these top positions, because so much is happening in these pit stops. I didn't expect Infamous and Jimmy to fall so far behind. I'm just going to see who's done 2 stops. Because Alex has a 10-second penalty, we know he'll fall back. And so that means I believe the net top 3 as it stands would be Josh from Fozzie, from Smithy, and then it'd be Infamous and Jamie Met probably who would finish the top 5 as it stands at the moment. But I tell you what, 7 seconds the gap Fozzie's got to close. I can't see him not doing it, and he would probably take a fastest lap on the way as well. This is shaping up for a Fozzie Bear victory at the moment, and Jason will certainly be doing his best to help this out. Honestly, if I was Jason, I'd let Josh through at this point and get the DRS down the main straight, and just really try and annoy Josh, because the teammates will be well, he's into the pits, Jason. I was going to say, the teammates will certainly be sort of communicating with each other, and that's sort of what I'd be doing just to help my teammate out in that situation. But I think holding up for, what, a second, 2 seconds loss? That might just be enough from Jason there, just to help this out, because the gap's now 6.5 seconds. This is closing really quickly.
So Smithy will go through and up into 3rd place. I think even with Jason on fresher tyres, he'll need to basically pull away from Storm, who actually comes into the pits. So I think Jason could well be on course for a 4th place finish here, even with the penalty he's got, although he will be most certainly be going to the stewards after that contact with Alex at the start, which got him that 10-second penalty for cutting across the track. So that's something for discussion afterwards, I would reckon.
Yeah, so in that clear air, I think Jason probably will make the gap to finish 4th place. So we'll see if he can do that, because he should be more than quicker. He's got more than enough clean air in front of him too, so not going to have to worry about traffic slowing him down. So that's working out okay for him, actually. But as you say, the stewards might get involved with that lap 1 thing. Honestly, it feels like it was a bit of a miscommunication between Alex and Jason, and since the game gave them both 10-second penalties, perhaps there's a chance that the stewards will just let that one go and say the game gave them the punishment, and in reality, they didn't damage each other, it was just a trip across the grass.
So looking at the gap, Fozzie Bear has got the gap currently to 4.9 seconds. You can see how hard he is pushing at the moment as he exits turns 14 and 15, and I think we're going to see a new fast lap of the race here with the way he's clogged down that gap. It's now a new fast lap, 1 minute 27.7. So potentially a championship point could be going Fozzie Bear's way. We've got a lot of those who've just pitted for the softs that could well take that fast lap point away from him, i.e. Jason.
I think that sinking feeling now for Josh Wilkins will surely be right there. It's only 4.5 seconds. He only got 1.5 seconds in hand now, has Josh Wilkins, with that penalty. And that pit stop, which I'm convinced was just an impulse. You see the yellow flag, you try and take advantage. He went on to the wrong tyre, and it's really going to cost him a victory that he really does deserve, because he was so quick before. But Fozzie Bear appears to have outsmarted him on the strategy as it stands. All he has to do now is just not make any mistakes, keep driving like this, and Ferrari will take the second win of the season, keeping their 100% record up, which is obviously fantastic for all the higher-ups up there.
Well, Fozzie Bear last season only managed the highest finish he achieved was third at Spa, which contributed to his 8th place championship finish overall. Could be on course to take his first victory in One Hub Racing, as far as I know. But he's most definitely getting the gap down to Wilkins. It's now 3.9 seconds.
Ferrari, of course, signed 2 drivers who hadn't won any races in One Hub before, and boy are they proving themselves at the moment. Fozzie, who's finished second in the first race, wants to do one better today. Will probably take the championship lead as well, because Jason at the minute looks like he's going to end up finishing about 4th place, and that would give Fozzie Bear the championship lead. Ferrari loving this in the constructors as well, because Josh Wilkins and Slippy, they didn't even score last week, or not that highly anyway, so Ferrari would, if anything, just be pulling away from the rest of the pack as it stands, and it'd be such a strong statement for these two to have taken both the first 2 wins, both drivers proving competitive, and it could be a bit of a Ferrari winning season. But let's not confirm anything yet, because the gap hasn't quite got there, but it's getting there, as Indecisive fights away with Storm in towards turn 1. That is for 8th place at the moment. I believe they both have the same penalty of 3 seconds. Yes, they do.
Yes,
and
they do.
They'll fight away. I wonder what Jess will do, because Jess is in that. If she can catch up, she's on pretty good tyres, and no penalties to her name. She is in the point scoring positions at the moment. Like I say, certainly taking herself off the cold list as it stands, but can she actually break into the top 10 perhaps, get a few more spots? Keep an eye on her towards the end. And Jimmy Met's all over the back of Infamous now, and they're both on the back of Alex Lydia, so there's plenty of stuff going on out there.
For the viewers out there, Owen, just explain the hot and cold list, because this is obviously a new thing for both of us this season. What exactly is it?
Well, I guess it's basically a way to sort of say, right, this is the drivers that are in form, out of form. It sort of puts a bit of unnecessary pressure, I think. Because after one race, if you turn around and say, oh, look how hot you are on the standings, you're thinking, well, cheers to the pressure. But it's basically who's hot and who's not, really. It's a basic sort of format, and it's everyone's way of saying, this is the drivers we fancy, others not. It also helps with the fantasy. We have One Hub Fantasy, where I think you choose one driver from each league, and however many positions they gain in the races is a point. I would have done terribly if anybody chose me last week, because I spun and crashed out. But basically, that hot and cold, this probably helps their decision making on that as well. And so one driver's hot, one driver's cold every week. And look at that gap. It's just gone under. Fozzie's in the lead.
I was just going to say, Demon's made up 8 places from his starter position currently. Now, with the penalty he has got, it would not actually drop him down the position, because Jess, who is in 12th place, and Demon 11, who has a penalty that's larger than Demon's, Jess would not get in front of Demon anyway. So Demon could be on course for a top 10 finish here after starting 18th.
So Fozzie now just has to finish these last 3 laps at a decent pace to win this race. He has to hope the tyres don't fall away, and he would certainly be looking very good for a race victory today, and it would be a very strong statement for the rest of the grid. Like I say, taking all 21 points. Fast enough outside the top 10, by the way, because Doyle, I think, will be the one hitting that point. Work for him. Obviously not had the best race, but at least if he can salvage 1 point out of it, that'd be something for him. He'd be disappointed with that performance today, because he did have good pace, was looking that sort of top 5 position, and it isn't really happening for him. And in this Jamie Infamous Alex Lilliard fight, Infamous knows he doesn't have to pass Alex Lilliard, but Jamie is still probably ruining that mistake he made earlier on, and might want to try and do something about that. Jason now is sitting 4th. The gap's just got over 10 seconds, so both Ferraris making the gaps that they need to get good positioning.
Yeah, and I was just going to say...
saying that. Sorry, just saying that. Fozzie is going in and out, so just keep your eye on that.
Yeah, that is a gap that definitely needs to be firmly looked at. It's just going past the back marker of Buzzer, whose car is controlled by the AI, so I'm not sure if these finishes going to count here. But Fozzie has got the gap down to 2.9 seconds again, so that's something worth looking out for. What I was going to say was, as it stands for Alex Lilliard, with that 10-second penalty at the start, he is going to lose 2 positions to Infamous and Jamie Met.
Stephen picks up a penalty. That could help Jess's case of moving up a couple of positions at the end of this race. And Josh Wilkins, he's still on 3 seconds. I'm just going to quickly check Fozzie Bear's warnings, just to make sure he isn't getting close to one.
Sorry to interrupt you, Owen. Jamie's gone for a spin. He's broken his front wing at turn 13. So that'll be him off into the pits. And it's good news for Alex Lilliard, because that's one less driver to worry about going into the final couple of laps of this race. Jamie must have lost it. I think he's the first driver, or one of the few drivers in this race, to make that mistake by just being too greedy on the curves there at turn 12. It puts him in the wall. But luckily, at least he's still in the race.
That's a disaster, though, isn't it? He was so close to the end. Could have been so much more if he didn't have those 2 mistakes. Infamous as well, as that happened, got past Alex Lilliard, who's now trying to fight back up towards turn 4, side by side, Red Bull and Alfa Romeo. The Red Bull doesn't have to fight this one because, of course, he's got no penalties. He's now way too far behind Jason to try and do anything about his gap, I'd imagine. And Lilliard, well, he's fallen back now anyway, hasn't he? And they are all over the show, but I think Infamous rather doesn't mind if he loses that position again, because he will still be sitting in 5th place. And now Fozzie Bear's got the gap down to 2.2 seconds as we head towards the final lap of this race. And Josh, the sinking feeling, like I say, it will really be there for him now. He needs the lap of his life here to try and salvage this 3-second gap, and I just don't think it's going to happen, and it's leading to Fozzie Bear having the chance of the victory.
So it's an instant sector 1. Is that Josh who's just had a bit of a moment, not too shy? It may just be the back marker, actually. He's just leaving the pits.
Yeah.
So we're on the final lap there. The gap is 2 seconds between Wilkins and Fozzie Bear, but with Wilkinson's penalty, that's going to drop him behind the Ferrari. So Ferrari on course to make it 2 victories out of 2, but this time it's Fozzie Bear who's going to be standing on the top step. Smithy will be happy with his 3rd place despite his melodies earlier on. We went off a couple of times whilst trying to pass other drivers, but he won't be too displeased with where he's going to finish, as Alex Lilliard and Infamous continue to tussle, fighting over 5th place. Alex Lilliard does get through, but Infamous is going to be back into that position by the checkered flag. Storm is in 7th place. Looking at the penalties, he's on course to keep hold of that position, as is Indecisive and Demon. Stevens' penalty is going to drop him 2 positions as it stands behind Jess and Ols. So we'll go back to the leaders then, because Josh Wilkins is about to complete the last lap as Jason gets another time penalty. We'll come to that shortly. But it's Wilkins who's entering the last couple of turns now, with Fozzie Bear right behind him. Wilkins crosses the line, but his gap is not big enough, because Fozzie Bear is going to win the Bahrain Grand Prix in Sakhir. It's his first victory of the campaign and the first in one hub racing. Wilkins will take 2nd place in the Alfa Romeo, with Smithy coming home behind, a long way behind in 3rd place, but at least he's not going to be displaced by the likes of Jason behind and Lilliard. But it's a performance from Fozzie Bear that he cannot complain, Aaron Wyatt.
First podium for all 3 of these drivers, and a first win for Fozzie Bear. So as much as Josh might be disappointed he doesn't get the win, at least he's finally stood on the rostrum for the first time. So well done to him. Was a great performance all day, but Fozzie Bear, he kept it clean on the penalties, and a well-deserved victory. Smithy did well as well to keep his confidence up really after those spins on the first run on the softs. He made a good recovery. He's ended up third place. I think it's a very deserving top three. Jason ended up fourth in the end with Infamous in fifth. Alex obviously fought as hard as he could. If anything, he cost Infamous because Jason got a 3-second penalty right at the end, and Infamous, if he had just got by a little bit quicker, might have actually still finished fourth. So Storm ends up seventh in the end. Indecisive, and will confirm the rest at the end. But like I say, always good to see 3 new podium sitters. It's always a good feeling.
Well, Fozzie Bear finished on the podium last week in Australia, and he finished on the podium at Spa. So this is his third podium finish in One Hub Racing. I think this is Josh Wilkinson's first podium in One Hub Racing, and also for Smithy as well. Because Smithy's best results prior to the season was a 10th place finish at Paul Ricard, and last time out in Melbourne, he finished only 12th. So this is by far Smithy's best result in One Hub Racing. But in the meantime, the drivers are celebrating on the podium. Fozzie Bear, secure in the knowledge that he is a winner in One Hub Racing. A brilliant, brilliant performance. So a rundown on the final race result. Fozzie Bear wins with Josh Wilkins second after the time penalties applied. Then Smithy third, Jason fourth, Infamous fifth, Alex Lilliat. Storm is seventh, have Indecisive, Jessica in ninth, and Demon rounding out the top 10. The driver with the fastest lap inside the top 10 is Fozzie Bear. Ols is 11th ahead of Stephen with 12th place. Jamie Met down to 13th by the season's end, by the race end, I should say. Dole 14th ahead of Hawkey, TJW, and Buzzer. Waze was the only driver that did not finish the race. The driver with the fastest lap outside the top 10 was, in fact, Jamie Met. So at least he comes away with a championship point to his name. But what a race we had tonight, Owen.
Yeah, very good race tonight, I'd say. A first-time winner, 2 first-time podium sitters. I do think, sorry, actually Doyle might have actually pipped Jamie for that fastest lap at the end. So Doyle actually pipped Jamie, so that's just insult to injury for Jamie. Finishes 1 place outside the points, finishes 3/100ths of a second outside of points. I think this is a race he's really going to want to forget. But I think after this, really good race. Turns out Alex Lilliat was right. No safety cars. We did get a virtual, but that doesn't really count. So fair enough, Alex. You win this round. But we do have to pick drivers of the day. And I'm going to straight away make my vote and say, thanks to the fact he got no penalties and was so consistent, Fozzie Bear with a victory, I'm asking you, how is that consistency going to work for the rest of your season? Do you reckon with wins like this, no penalties, will that be crucial to your title success?
And my driver of the day, I'm going to go Smithy for keeping his car clean. I mean, he did have his offs, but it's about recovering from those issues. And my penalty for Smithy is, Bahrain was by far your best results. Can you carry that form throughout the remainder of the season? And do you feel you have made a step up from season 18? That would be my question going to him. Well, after that race, we'll look at the championship standings. I'll mention the championship standings after that. Fozzie Bear's victory in Bahrain has put him into the lead of the championship standings. He's now on 38 points. Jason is in second place. He drops to second place, but his fourth place finish gets him 12 points. He moves on to 33. So it's a 5-point difference between Fozzie Bear in the lead and Jason in second place. Owen, your last thoughts from today?
Well, a good race, good pace from the guys out there. Good to see a bit cleaner racing as well compared to last week. Good to see, hopefully that will continue for the rest of the season. And I'm very much looking forward to going to Hungary next week, of course. It's going to be a very good race, I'm sure. And hope you'll all be here to tune in as well. And thank you all for tuning in. I know we started a bit late today, so it's good to see everyone still showing up. Cheers.
Yes, absolutely. So Budapest next week for the Prospect Tier. We expect it to return to its usual start time of 6 p.m. Whether it be on Twitch or YouTube, we'll keep you informed. Owen, thank you very much for joining me. I've enjoyed tonight's race as well, and I can't wait to do all over again in Hungary next week. Now, the time of next week will be 6 p.m. British Summer Time on the 17th of September. I'm Tom Cairns, he's Owen Wyatt, and we'll speak to you again soon when One Hub Racing returns.